Welcome to the congregation of Yahweh. We're here on Yahweh's Sabbath day, coming close to our first fall feast. Greetings to those on the DVD program and those on the internet. Today's message is entitled The Last Trumpet. Behold the Lion. Discussing the feast with someone not long ago, I was told that Jesus fulfilled all that stuff. Well, I didn't want to get into it at that point in time, but my next question would be, how? What do they mean? If you tell me that he fulfilled them, you tell me what they mean. And I guarantee you, he would have no answer, because he was only repeating what he had been told, which was a verse taken out of context when he said, I did not come to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Well, that same word is used at the baptism of the Messiah. He said this needs to be done to fulfill all righteousness. So does that mean he did away with all righteousness? He fulfilled it, and he brought it to fruition. Without the Messiah, righteousness was an empty tree. He put the fruit on it. Without the understanding of the law was an empty tree. He brought it to fruition. He put the fruit on the tree. And it's the same with the feasts. He brings the feast to understanding. John the Immerser, the baptizer, he knew that. When he said, behold, the Lamb of Yahweh that takes away the sins of the world, he saw the fruit. And at the sound of the last trump, the whole world will say, behold, the Lion from the tribe of Judah. Until the world says, behold, the Lion, that feast has not seen its fruit. We only see it in a glass dimly. In Leviticus chapter 23, starting in verse 1, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of Yahweh. Now, just from what we read right here, we see who the feasts belong to. They don't belong to the Jews. They don't belong to the Israelites. They belong to Yahweh. They are His. And you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, set apart gatherings. Even these are my feasts. And if we are to say that yes, they belong to the Jews or they belong to the Israelites, well, Yahweh said there's only one Torah for the Israelite and the stranger who sojourns among you. Whether they're born in the land or not, there's only one teaching. And then he goes on to tell us about his feasts. He starts with the Sabbath and goes through all the different convocations, proclaiming them to be his. And it's interesting that he brings us together weekly to remember his rest. He brings us together monthly to keep us all on the same calendar, to keep us all on the same page, and to remember and to count down until the next time we come together. Then we come together again, and these feasts that have been prescribed all point to our Messiah. Why did he give these feasts to Israel? So they would know who their Messiah was. Verse 23 brings us up to our feast at hand. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation, You shall do no servile work therein, but you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. He doesn't give a definite reason. Why do you blow the trumpet? He just says to do it. And it's a remembrance. But we can search through the scriptures. When our Messiah brought the fruit to the empty tree, things were revealed. And not only do these blowing of trumpets remember things that have been done, they bring to mind what will be done. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 39, all flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the esteem of the celestial is one, and the esteem of the terrestrial is another. There is one esteem of the sun, and another esteem of the moon, and another esteem of stars, for one star differs from another star in esteem. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in honor. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul, the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterwards that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the sovereign from heaven. As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy. And as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. Every human being on the face of this earth inherited the image of Adam. And we strive each day to be conformed to the image of our Messiah. But one day we shall be made like him. We shall see him as he is, and our vile bodies shall be fashioned like unto his glorious body. That's in 1 John. Now this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Yahweh, neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. Meaning, some will be alive at his return. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. Now, by him calling it the last trump, that leads us to understand that there's more than one trump. There's trumps before the last. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? So at the sound of the last trump, this old carcass that we've been dragging around shall be changed, and death will be no more. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. In both what we're about to read and what we just read, it's the context is the resurrection, the change that's going to take place, and the trumpet is the central theme in both messages. Verse 13, "But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that you sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Yeshua died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yeshua will Elohim bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of Yahweh, that we which are alive and remain," that's why he said, "not all shall sleep," "we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Master shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Master himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of Yahweh. And the dead in the Messiah shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Master in the air. And so shall we ever be with Yahweh. Therefore comfort one another with these words." Now, here it said that he would descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel or chief messenger, and with the trumpet of Yahweh. Revelation chapter 1. Starting in verse 1. "The revelation of Yeshua the Messiah, which Elohim gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. He sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John." Went from Yahweh to Yahshua to an angel to the servant John, "who bear record of the word of Elohim and of the testimony of Yeshua the Messiah, and of all things that he saw. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. John to the 7 assemblies which are in Asia, grace be unto you, and peace from Yahweh, which is, and which was, and which is to come, and from the 7 spirits which are before his throne, and from Yeshua the Messiah, who is the faithful witness, and the first begotten of the dead, and the prince of the kings of the earth. Unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood, and hath made us kings and priests unto Elohim and his Father. To him be honor and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith Yahweh El, which is, and which was, and which is to come. Shaddai. I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, and in the kingdom and patient of Yeshua the Messiah, was in the isles that is called Patmos, for the word of Elohim and for the testimony of Yeshua the Messiah. I was in the Spirit on the Master's day, and heard behind me a great voice as of a trumpet. Now, I've heard doctrines out there saying, oh, he was in the Spirit on Sunday. And I've heard some say, well, he was hanging out on the Sabbath day and he heard a voice. Well, I think this trumpet is the same trumpet we've been reading about, the last trump. On that day, the day of the Messiah's return, the day that thy King cometh, is the day that he heard the trumpet. And he receives revelations for the next 22 chapters as to what he saw preceding and up to that day. And he's saying, this trumpet, This voice as of a trumpet said, I am the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. And what thou seest, write in a book, 22 chapters, and send it unto the 7 assemblies which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girded about with paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. What a sight that would be to see. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. I am he that liveth and was dead. And behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And I have the keys of the grave and of death. Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 assemblies, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 assemblies. Matthew chapter 24. Starting in verse 1. And Yeshua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yeshua said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? So they're wanting to know, when are you going to return? What are the signs of the end of this age? When is this going to happen? And Yeshua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. Well, there's a lot of deception about the return of the Messiah. There's a lot of deception, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, who's going to disappear before it happens, and so forth. So the first warning that he gives after they ask, what are the signs of your coming? The first warning is, do not be deceived. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. All these are just the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this good news of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. Not one being would be left alive, unless those days of tribulation were shortened. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. For the chosen, for the few that are left, the King shall come and spare their lives. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is the Messiah, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as lightning comes out of the east and shines even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. When you see lightning shining, it is very visible. There will be no mistake as to his return. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. At his return, there will be carcasses, and there will be the fowls of heaven gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. That same theme is brought out of Revelations about the sun and the moon and the stars. And you would think whoever wrote the book of Revelations got it straight from the Messiah's mouth. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great majesty. And he shall send his angels out with a great sound of a trumpet. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, and from one end of heaven to the other. So we see another sound of a trumpet at his return. Exodus chapter 19. This is a historical account of a meeting between Yahweh and his people. And I believe that this meeting was prophetic of a future event. Starting in verse 1, In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moses went up unto Elohim, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that Yahweh hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto Yahweh, as if he needed to. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Go unto the people, and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the third day. So we have a people coming out of Egypt, getting their clothes cleansed in preparation of a meeting with the Father. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves that you go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall surely be put to death. There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, then shall come up to the mount. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day, come not at your wives. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning, that there were thunders and lightnings, and a thick cloud upon the mountain, and the voice of the trumpet exceedingly loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with Elohim. This was a meeting at the sound of the trumpet. And they stood at the nether part of the mount, and the Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because Yahweh descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long, and grew louder and louder, Moses spake, and Elohim answered him by a voice. And Yahweh came down upon the Mount Sinai on the top of the mount, and Yahweh called Moses up to the mount, and Moses went up. And Yahweh said unto Moses, Go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto Yahweh to gaze, and many of them perish. And let the priests also which come near to Yahweh sanctify themselves, lest Yahweh break forth upon them. Sanctification must take place, lest Yahweh break forth upon them. And Moses said unto Yahweh, The people cannot come up to the Mount Sinai, for thou chargest us, saying, Set bounds about the mount, and sanctify it. And Yahweh said unto him, Away, get thee down, and thou shalt come up, thou and Aaron with thee, but let not the priests and the people break through to come up unto Yahweh, lest he break forth upon them. So Moses went down unto the people. Just a little recap. These people come out of Egypt, which is, we've all aware well of the imagery. This is a symbol of the slavery of mankind. When humanity comes out of the slavery of sin, ready to leave this despicable world behind, at the sound of the trumpet, our King will appear. And I believe this same statement will be made true. Verse 5. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto Israel. Starting in verse 20, he goes on to say, and Elohim spake all these words, and he continues with the 10 Commandments. And at the end of the 10 Commandments in verse 18, and all the people saw the thunderings, and the lightnings, and the noise of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not Elohim speak with us, lest we die. Now, the writer of Hebrews, I believe, said that they didn't want to hear what was commanded. So, I believe Yahweh made a provision for this, and that's in Deuteronomy chapter 18. I won't say I believe he made a provision. I'll say the word says that he made a provision. Deuteronomy 18:15. Yahweh thy Elohim will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me. Unto him you shall hearken, according to all that thou desired of Yahweh thy Elohim in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh my Elohim, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. And Yahweh said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. This same word was made flesh and dwelt among us. The words that came from him, he did not speak of himself, but he spoke what he was commanded to speak. He came the first time as a lamb with the word. He's coming back as a lion with the word. Now, there are some, let's go to 1 John. There are some who cannot see this word. And we all know, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with him. All things were made by him. In him was life. The light shined into darkness, but the darkness didn't comprehend it. He came to his own, and his own received him not. And in verse 14, John chapter 1, verse 14, and that same word was made flesh and dwelt among us. We beheld his majesty, the majesty as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. 1 John. Let's go to 1 John. Little John. The same John. Chapter 1. That which was from the beginning. Well, the Gospel of John just started off. In the beginning was the Word. So I believe he would be referring to the same word here in chapter 1, verse 1. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard. We heard the Messiah. which we have seen with our eyes. We saw him, which we looked upon, and our hands have handled. We touched him of the word of life. For the life was manifested, and we have seen it, and bear witness, and show unto you that everlasting life which was with the Father. What did he say in the gospel? The Word was Elohim, the Word was with the Elohim, and was manifested unto us. That which we have seen and heard declare we unto you, that ye also may have fellowship with us. And truly our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Yeshua the Messiah. Revelations chapter 19. Now, the people didn't want to hear the words of Yahweh. He said, I will send a prophet and put my words in his mouth. Well, he did. But it's going to happen again. Revelations 19, verse 11. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood. And his name is called the Word of Elohim. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Sovereign of Sovereigns. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to the fowls, the birds in heaven, that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great Elohim, that you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant was slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth. And all the fowls were filled with their flesh. In Hebrews it says that the word of Yahweh is sharper than any two-edged sword. I don't believe that our Messiah is returning with a sword coming out of his mouth. I believe his word is all that he needs, and he is that word of Yahweh. In chapter 17 in Luke. Verse 24. For as the lightning that lighteneth out of one part under heaven shineth unto the other part under heaven, so shall also the Son of Man be in his day. But first must he suffer many things and be rejected of this generation. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. The flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. Our Messiah will be revealed from heaven, and he gives us definite descriptions as to what it will be like. It will be lightning shining from one end of heaven to the other, and in the same way, when the flood came, only few there were that were saved, and the rest perished. In the same way, Lot and his 2 daughters were saved, and the rest perished. And he goes on to say, in that day, he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. And gives us a perfect illustration of Lot's wife. She turned back. Boy, then he goes on to say, remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. I tell you, in that night there shall be 2 men in one bed, and one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. 2 women shall be grinding together, the one shall be taken, and the other left. 2 men shall be in the field, the one shall be taken, and the other left. There are doctrines out there that teach that this chosen few shall disappear from the earth, and everyone else will be left here to suffer. But he tells us in the next verse what's going to happen. And they answered and said to him, Where, Master? Where shall they be taken? Now, we don't need to know where the person was left in the field. They're left in the field. We don't need to know where the person was left at the meal, because they're going to be left at the meal. We don't need to know why that person was left in the bed or where they're going, because they're going to be left in the bed. But where are those people taken? He answers, where the body is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Or where the carcass is, there the vultures will be gathered together. We just read about it in Revelations, when the fowls of the heaven come to eat the flesh of all those that weren't spared. So at the sound of the last trumpet, for some it will be victory, celebration, the coronation of the King, and life everlasting. But for some, it's danger. It's war. It's death. And there's a perfect illustration of that in Revelations. And I'll get to that in just a second. Revelations chapter 6. Starting in verse 11. Now, remember, we went back to Exodus and we saw the white robes and people getting prepared for the meeting and the word, the law being poured out. Starting in verse 11, and white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest for a little while, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth. And when we read in Matthew 24, the Messiah talked about before the end, the sun, the moon, and the stars will play a role. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind, and the heaven depart as a scroll when it is rolled together. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and rich men, and chief captains, and mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, they hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Now there will be a group of people who will probably fall to their knees in tears and praise Yahweh for that day. Chills running all through our bodies, saying, man, it's finally here. And there will be a vast, great multitude that will be screaming and crying for their lives, most of which knew the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness and mocked the truth. Chapter 7, starting in verse 1. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the trees, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in this forehead. So we see that destruction is about to be poured out on the earth. But he said, put a seal on my servants first. And flipping over to chapter 8. And when he had opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before Elohim, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And I believe that's why he said at the sound of the last trump. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before Elohim out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire, cast it into the sea, and the third part of the sea became as blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and fountains of water. So far in these trumpet judgments, we see the earth affected, and then the sea, and then the fountains, the rivers and fountains of water. And there's a counterpart to that, which we won't go there right now. In chapter 16, it talks about vials. In the same order, these things are affected. But the purpose, of this message, the sound of the last trumpet, our King, will be revealed. But before that happens, there's going to be devastation. So when we go through this trumpet season, we can remember that our King is soon to be revealed. But let us also remember that trumpet judgment doesn't mean the same for everybody. In Micah chapter 4, and I think that in the same way at Mount Sinai, when the people set themselves apart, prepared themselves for Yahweh, He manifests His laws to them. He tells them, if you keep my laws, you will be a peculiar treasure unto me. In Micah chapter 4, starting in verse 1, but in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of Yahweh shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up unto the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of Elohim of Jacob, and He will teach us of His ways, and we will walk in His paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. Behold the lion. Hallelujah.